All right. Hello, everyone. So today is the second episode of this little random podcast we are doing. Today with me, I have David and Samuel, both members of our management team. And today, for today's podcast, we're just going to be talking a lot about science labs, specifically biology, chemistry, and physics labs, because those are the ones that we have currently been able to encounter, as well as maybe some online experiences we've had with labs. So I guess first and foremost, guys, if you guys just want to say hi for a little bit, and yeah, we can go ahead and get started.
Yeah, hello. I'm David.
Hello, my name is Samuel.
All right, perfect. We got the introductions down so we can hear everyone's voice. But yeah, I guess let's go ahead and get started. So obviously, labs, we're all STEM students, I think all three of us are human bio majors. So it's kind of important for us to do labs because it's a whole integral part of our curriculum and you need it for, pre-med, med school, or whatever you guys are planning on doing. I guess let's talk about first and foremost, what do we think of labs before coming into college? Like, what do we expect of them?
So, like, for me, when I came in, I actually had no clue what labs were. So, and when I was like first registering for classes, like the first time, like having to choose a lab, I knew that we were going to be doing like experiments, what we've done like for AP Bio and AP Chem, but I didn't really truly realize like what we're actually doing in there.
Yeah, I mean that's true. I mean, I think we were registering. It was pretty intimidating. I think when we registered in orientation, the fact that it was like a 3 hour time chunk, it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
the middle. It was a huge time chunk that it was like basically doing three lectures in just one time period. And I was like, oh, I don't think it's gonna take that long. And for the most
Mm.
part, we were right about bio, but chemistry was, oh, that was a whole nother story. I got a lot of funny stories with Sam actually about chemistry labs.
Right, right.
But Sam, what did you think about labs before registering?
Yeah, I guess coming into labs, I kind of expected what a traditional high school level lab would be, and that took us around an hour and a half. But looking at the schedule, like you mentioned, it was 3 hours, so I guess I was expecting more of a intense, I guess extensive, more detail oriented labs. And yeah, I did not expect lab to have so much data analysis as much as just experimentation and um, that being it. Because in high school, that was mostly we didn't really use the results to create some sort of analysis from them. And so yeah, I guess that was something new.
That is true. I mean, the number of times like, I think the hours we spent on like post labs for chemistry. Oh, those were fun. Just
Yeah,
like
that was
work.
like yeah, 8 hours a week. That's
Oh,
tough.
so much. Yeah.
It was bad, dude. It's not even just because like, not even just analyzing. Like, okay, well, I guess figuring out the numbers was one thing. Like trying to understand what they meant. Like if we're talking about like titrations or something like that, then just like applying it to titrations. But the fact of just putting the numbers into the Excel sheet, like that took so long and
Hmm.
stuff. Like there were just so many
Right.
data points that we recorded. Like I'm surprised I was even able to write that stuff down like in lab.
Hmm.
Oh
Yeah.
boy, yeah. Anyways, we got biochemistry physics lab. Which labs do you guys want to talk about first? You want to talk about the less depressing labs for bio, the more depressing labs or chemistry, or David, do you want to talk about physics? What do you guys want to do?
Let's start with chemistry.
Want to
Yeah.
start with chemistry? Okay,
So we could
chemistry lab.
scare off our audience
Scare off the
from
audience right in the first 10 minutes of this
yeah.
college. Like, oh yeah, if you're a STEM major, good luck. No, I mean chemistry was. I mean, I think for me, it's just because I didn't take AP chemistry in high school. In fact, the only chemistry experience I had in high school was over the summer, and that was just regular chemistry. Because I was like, nah, chem's not my thing. I'm just gonna do AP bio, AP environmental science. I even did physics over the summer, so technically I didn't really do AP chemistry or physics during the school year. I did like all the other APs. So when I was in college, I was like, oh, I'll just take intro chem because I need to know it. I mean, it doesn't matter anyways. Basically, everyone has to take intro chem. You're pre-med. AP credits didn't
Hmm.
do anything. But I was like, oh, intro chem shouldn't be too bad. And then like the class lectures went fine. Like I was like, yeah, I know this stuff. And then the test came along and it was brutal for everyone the first test, but for the most part it was like okay. But then chemistry labs, oh my gosh, I did not expect that much work. Um,
Hmm.
I'm trying to recall it. I tried to like forget this part of my high school. I don't know, not high school, my college experience. But let's see. We always had a pre-lab. We always had the actual lab experiment, and then we had the post lab. And I think I remember for me, the actual lab was 3 hours. Like it took the entire time. There was like one or two labs at most out of like 20 that maybe it took us like 30 minutes, but every lab was like 3 hours. But then the pre-labs took like at least 2 hours to figure out. And then the post labs, like Sam said, took anywhere between like 6 to like 12 hours. And that was per week. And keep in mind, we have other stuff to study for too. So I'm trying to think. It was bad because I would remember me and Sam just always going to the library at like 8 p.m. and we wouldn't leave until 12 in the morning. And we still wouldn't have finished. Like I would still call Sam like probably 3 hours before the lab was due. And be like, Sam, did we ever figure out number 5? And it was
Yeah,
so bad.
It
I
was
remember that.
extremely time consuming for sure.
Yeah.
I think one of the main problem was, I don't know if this might be just a USC problem or just our chem department, but like the wording in the lab manual is very both vague and just unclear, very not straightforward. And then you'll be like kind of guessing, what am I supposed to be answering here?
Yeah.
Like that's what I thought.
Yeah, I feel like if the instructors were like there to like explain each procedure, that would have been
Mhm.
easier. But then you would just ask questions and they would just look at the manual and then say what's on the manual.
True.
And like when there was a technical difficulty, that was the worst because like none of us could figure it out, and then
Mhm.
we would just have to, get
That
on with it with the false data.
for legal reasons, we did not fabricate any data. We used the truthful data. I remember funny thing about fabricating data, let's be real. The truth be told, I think everyone did it. Like let's be honest.
Mhm.
Like no one followed the academic honesty, and that everyone fabricated it. Like it's just literally the truth of it. But there was one time where Sam and I we were doing. I remember this experiment, Sam, where this is one of the funny stories I have with Sam. So we were doing a titration in second semester freshman chemistry. It was like inorganic chem stuff, like electrochem stuff like that. And then I remember Sam and I were doing it was like we had to run our own trials, and then Sam was measuring certain things, and then for one of the trials he messed it up, and then he just stood there just like, oh my gosh, what did I do wrong? And I swear he was like that for a solid 2 hours, and I was like running around panicking trying to figure out what to do and like fix it, and he was just sitting there like, oh my gosh, like he was having like a like a crisis the entire time.
Yeah, because we legit took 2 hours to get that done, and then
I mean, it didn't
last
even matter.
minute,
Like everyone was still in the lab room, so we knew everyone else was struggling. But I remember
Mhm.
Sam was just sitting there like panicking, and I was like, "Oh my
yeah,
god,
I
what
was
we do?"
devastated.
Yeah, because I don't even know what lab it was. I try not to remember the lab, but then I remember when we were doing the lab report, because we used like whatever data we got. Remember how we had to do all those error calculations, like error propagation and whatnot?
Yeah. That's what I meant by false data. I meant like
Yeah.
those that weren't accurate.
But then, so when we were doing the error propagation, whatever data we got, we legit couldn't even calculate the error propagation because
Right.
it would be negative or invalid before we can finish do like error propagation took forever too. They took like at least an hour just to do one part of a problem. And the fact that we couldn't even get past like basically the second step of the calculations, I was just like, I'm not gonna do it. I'm gonna write on my lab report incalculable. And Sam and I got full credit for it.
Oh
And
yeah,
Dang.
dude,
You
those were
our
guys
like,
want?
TA went easy on us.
Oh,
So
you guys are
that is
gotta
so
admit.
lucky. I
yeah,
had yeah, I had not mentioning any names here. She was a great TA though, but dang, she grades so strictly. Oh my gosh. Like I think it's out of 15, right? Like
they were out of 15. It was like 15 points.
right?
Ironically, it was only 15 points, which I think when we calculated for our entire grade was I think each lab report was only worth like 1.5% of our grade, something like that.
Yeah, very little. But
Yeah.
like yeah, some TAs just yeah, it really just depends on each TA. But the TA I had just would not give 14s or 15s unless you came to her office hours and then like make sure everything is correct with her.
Yeah. It was sad because they took forever, dude. Like,
Mm,
I remember, yeah, Sam and I, we called each other a lot. And I remember I would run into you, David, when in the dorm, and I'd be like, hey, how did the post lab go? And we would both look at each other and we're just like, nah,
yeah,
not
oh,
today. It
it's
was
rough.
not.
Yeah, that's another problem with like the labs where the lab TAs don't really have a lot of office hours. It's like once a
Mm,
week, and
Also
usually
PhD
that
students
would
too, so.
yeah. So like they're busy. I understand, but like if it overlaps with your classes, then you can't make it to office hours.
mhm.
And so like you have to like directly go and ask, which is like I don't know if for me it was difficult, especially because like I didn't know if it was gonna help, and like I already had like my own sense of like what to do and stuff. So I wasn't completely lost. So I didn't see any point to that. But then it didn't help that like all of their regular office hours overlap with my classes.
That is
Mhm.
true. 'Cause, I mean, because think about it, graduate students usually take classes at night or stuff like that. So the only time they were available was like in the morning or like early afternoon. That's when I had my classes. So it was
Mhm.
like I don't think I ever actually went to a TA's office hours. I've been to a professor's office hours, but never a TA's office hours.
Oh, really?
I never have, and I just like Sam said, like they always conflicted with like my schedule, so it's not like I had the time to go. Or I had maybe like work at that time. I was like, oh
Mhm.
well, unfortunate. I'll take the money instead of the help. But you
Mm.
know, yeah, okay, funny question. Have any of you guys broken anything in lab?
Oh yeah,
Like
of course.
yeah, like have you,
Oh,
David? Have you ever? I think like those specific apparatus and whatnot.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like that clear, like thin plastic little rod thing, glass rod, where you like stir things with it. Is that thing called a stirring rod?
Just the stirring rod, the clear glass, the
Yeah,
clear
yeah, yeah,
glass one,
yeah.
right? I broke that one too.
Yeah, like I broke, I think three in lab.
Three?
Oh my gosh, yeah. It's because I know I just be dropping them all the time,
Oh
and
my
they're so
gosh.
fragile too.
I mean, they were, but I didn't expect you to say three.
Yeah. Now that I
I
think about
just
it, that
broke
is a lot.
the tiny little cylinders. I don't know what you call it.
Oh,
There were graduated cylinders.
the
There were the
flask,
testing tubes.
the test tubes, yeah, those.
Ah,
Yeah, I just held them kind of tightly and then it broke in my hand. I don't
mm,
know. Like those things are so fragile. Like,
yeah.
What did I break? So I broke a stirring rod too, the glass stirring rod. But it was funny how I broke it because like my lab partner in 105A handed me his stirring rod, and then he said, "Oh, can you go clean it?" And I was like, "Sure." So I was trying to wipe it with a tissue, and instead of like moving the tissue to clean the rod, I threw the rod. Instead, it just went into the floor. But no, the second thing I broke, this was actually a lot. It was a bigger equipment, but it was pretty funny how it happened. It was, I think Sam might remember this too. It was the titration tube, the one where you just pour the thing. This was in
oh
one.
yeah.
This was first semester chemistry. So my partner and I were working on it, and then he wanted me to do the next trial, right? Because we had to do multiple trials for it. And I kid you not, I literally I was like in the process just like turning the tube slightly, and the moment I did it, the tube just dropped. It just straight dropped, and it
Oh.
shattered all over the place. And I was like, ooh, wow, there is hydrochloric acid everywhere. I was like, I didn't even know what to think. I just stood there and I was like, do I like clean it up? Do I guys get a fire hydrant? Like, I know, I was literally confused. I was like, I don't know what to do. It was like, I broke something. Like, because when you break everything, everyone's looking at you. And I wasn't embarrassed. I was just straight confused. I was like, Rick, what do I do? Like,
Mm,
I just broke something.
yeah,
I
and
hated working with the titration tubes
It was,
because
it
I would
sucked.
always overflow it and then all the hydrochloric acid would,
Just dripped down.
be all over the desk.
I remember because one time Sam told me to read where the level was, but he was pouring it at the same time. And then he poured it overflowed the top, and it was dripping down. I was like, Sam, you're going to burn me. And I'm just trying to get the data.
Yeah, yeah. That's
Uh,
exactly.
Fun times. Chemistry labs were
interesting.
both, I would say, my worst and best memories. The worst because they were bad, but the best
Mhm.
because I got to at least spend that time with you guys and actually work on it. And like even though we all suffered, I think it was just nice having each other kind of help each other
Mhm.
out, even though we were all lost and didn't know what we were doing.
Mhm. Mhm.
Mm, definitely.
Another thing about chemistry labs, the lab practical.
Oh shoot. Oh no.
Okay. I failed that.
That
I
was
did
rough.
Just to put that out there.
no,
I think I
I have
failed
no
that.
shame in it. Was I think it was 25 points, so it was worth what 2.5% of our total chemistry grade. And I
Mm.
remember the day that it was first semester, because second semester we had an online practical, which somehow was pretty bad too. But the first semester, I remember I was in person. David, what experiment did you have for your chemistry practical?
Shoot, not gonna lie, that's so far back. I don't quite remember. I just remember something with hot. Oh, I think it was calorimetry. No,
Oh,
I lied. It was the titrations. I had titrations.
okay. I low key would have taken that. Sam and I, we had to do volumetric analysis with those tube things, the ones where you had to level it and you had to like I
Oh,
Yeah,
know
that's the
people
only one I didn't know.
same, right? I what I didn't study for
uh,
because I didn't expect it. and then, okay, obviously people listening to this aren't gonna know what we're talking about, but essentially you have two tubes. You would fill them with like water and like you would like air seal it because you're just trying to check like gas pressure and like volume, and then you would just level the water. It was just very stupid and complicated. And then I remember that lab was like, I just didn't do anything correctly. I remember it was 25 points, 5 for the procedure, 5 for you get 5 points on whether or not you guessed or you got the correct element that we were supposed to kind of solve for, right? I remember we were trying to find, oh, which cation um, element is your specific unknown, and then you would get like 10 points for procedure. Let's see, what was it? Five for the, I don't even remember. No, it was 5 for the procedure, 5 for your data table, 10 for the calculations, and then 5 for the final answer. But if you got the final answer wrong, that basically meant all your calculations were wrong. So the most you could have gotten was like a 10 out of 25, which everyone who walked out of that room, guarantee you, we all got a 10 out of 25.
It was rough, yeah.
Yep.
Luckily for me, I was able to, like what you're saying, titrations, even though like the accuracy was like kind of a problem, it was relatively easier than especially all the other ones. I know some people had to do were like the calorimetry experiment where they had like the hot dog weenies, and I don't know what they did, but they took a long time. And since the practical, we're only given I think 2 hours. I know a
No,
lot of
we were
people,
given one. We were given one and a
was
half.
it? Oh yeah, it was like
I remember that was the
definitely not
one lab
enough.
we didn't stay the whole time, and that's
Oh
why
my
everyone
gosh.
was depressed.
Yeah, it was so stressful because those people that are doing calorimetry, most of them actually didn't finish, so they had to just turn in what they had. And at that point, how little like if it wait, I think yeah, you said it was out of 25 points, right?
hmm
Just imagine if you don't finish it and your calculation is wrong on top of that. I know 15 out of 25.
I mean, in all honesty, no, because remember, you wouldn't get. I remember you wouldn't get credit for your calculations if your final answer wasn't correct. And in all honesty, the calculations, like if you just didn't know how to do it, then you're just kind
Yeah.
of screwed. Like it was bad because, yeah, like I said, you only get 10 out of 25, and that was like the maximum you would probably get from it.
Mm,
And I remember
Yeah.
second semester before COVID happened, I told myself like, oh, if I'm gonna do that practical, I'm gonna do well on every single other lab and get the highest grade possible so I can bomb that practical because I'm just writing the data, I'm just writing the procedure, and I'm walking out of the room.
hmm
Like I didn't want to do that practical. It was so stressful, especially second semester. The labs got harder because we had to use the pH meters. It was more
hmm
titrations. Ugh.
I thought that was okay.
Well, but remember the number of times we had to ask the TA like how to use the pH meter because that thing didn't
Right,
work.
right, right, right.
Do you remember?
Mm.
We broke so many of those electrode bottles too.
Yeah, I did that.
Oh my.
It's
Yeah,
because
we.
the cap, like, I tightened it too much, so then it just cracked. It's okay though.
Strength,
It's,
superhuman strength.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's okay.
Alrighty. I think
For
this was.
like,
Yeah.
I think the gas volumetric analysis, like, the only problem was that we never really did like the same type of analysis for our previous gas volumetric analysis lab.
Yeah.
Like we had to find a molar mass of this one, and that's what like confused me like the most. And then like my answer came out like way off. Like my grams per mole was like 10 off from what I put. So I
Mhm.
knew I was incorrect, but that was like the closest small, like that was the closest atom, right?
Right. I was
Element.
off by like a couple grams, and I was like, okay, screw it.
Yeah, yeah,
Like I was like, it's aluminum. Screw it. I don't know what it was, but yeah, I was just like, whatever. Okay, you know what? This number, it's 40 grams away, but it's the closest one, so I'm gonna go with this one. Like,
It was
Mm,
yeah,
horrible.
it was bad. Yeah. Let's not talk about chemistry anymore. I think this was a very sad time for all of us.
it was.
Let's go to bio. I think bio was a happier. Well, it wasn't the best, but it was happier than chemistry. Let's
Mhm.
see. Bio. What was the fun parts about bio? Um,
It was short.
they were short. I mean, first
They
semester
were
was.
short.
I left lab after like an hour, like 30 minutes, because we were just like we were just like looking at plants and describing their parts, which was super
Mhm.
easy because at least for me, my professor, the lecture we had that corresponded with the labs, like he basically told us everything, so I could finish the lab before the lab even started, and then I would be out in like
Mhm.
20 minutes. I was like, I
I
miss first semester bio. Second semester bio was a different story. But
I think yeah. One huge difference between what we did for chem labs and what we did for bio lab is that chem lab each week we had a lab report due, which each one took like 3 to 6 hours.
Yeah.
But for biolab, we have to do is before we go to our lab, we have like a
questions.
small pre-lab quiz, and then
Yeah.
we just do some pre-lab questions, come in, do the lab. It's usually take an hour and a half, and then sometimes it'll hit 3 hours, very few.
It
But
was
then after
yeah.
that, you're basically done. So then there was only, I think each semester is 2 lab reports, right?
I only 2.
Yeah, and
That
then
took a
that's
long
it.
time though.
Oh yeah,
Took
that's
me
true.
like 5 days
I
to
think
complete.
lab reports though because they were a lot more comprehensive than because chem labs, like in all due honesty, yeah, they took you like anywhere from 6 to 12 hours, but that's because the numbers were just you had to calculate were stupid. But in terms of like writing a conclusion, like those actual paragraphs, it's not like you have to write much.
Mm,
Bio, on the other hand, was like a lot of writing, a lot of
Yeah.
researching, getting links,
true.
framing, like citing them, creating graphs. So it did take a lot longer. But honestly, I would have rather have done those labs than chemistry labs. Because
Really?
Same. Yeah.
Not me.
really, no, I think chemistry labs, no, because at least with bio labs, I knew what I was doing. Like I knew what the expected results were, and actually,
Uh-huh.
at least finding the resources, it was tedious, but I knew what I was doing. So as long as
True.
I know what I'm doing, that's fine. In chemistry
Like,
labs, I didn't know what I was.
uh-huh. Like for me, I think like chemistry labs, I understood everything, so it was okay, right? But
Mhm.
then for bio labs, even though I did understand everything, the fact that I had to go out and research similar like type of experiments, that was like
Oh,
so like that was really difficult for me because especially when like finding primary sources, they would go back to like 1960s and you can't use those, right? Because it
Oh yeah,
has
it
to
was like
be
within
oh,
like I think
2000.
2000. It has to be within
yeah.
20 years. Yeah.
So I was like, what the heck am I doing? So like that took me like 3 days to find those articles and read them. And then I had to understand these other experiments that were way more complicated than the one we had done in class that I understood. And so it was like extra work on top of the work I already did. And so
Mhm.
the analysis was just like full of, oh, in comparison to this experiment,
Yeah.
I barely understand because there's like a lot of statistics involved. I guess that like it supports my data. And
Yeah.
like they would
Yeah.
like take off points for wording. They would take off
Oh,
points for like not doing like I don't know, like the graphs were wrong apparently because like I had
It
the
was a
title
bit
on
nitpicky.
top.
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
nitpicky.
Yeah.
Like,
That was like a lot of points. So like
mm,
it's
not,
yeah.
not gonna lie, for me, it was like the total opposite. I think, okay, so there's like an advantage to chem labs and then a disadvantage to, I mean, there's an advantage and disadvantage to both. For biolabs, I mean, those biolab reports, if you try to do them in one day, it's impossible.
Not yeah, you wouldn't.
Yeah, but for chem, you can complete it in one day and then you turn out with like a good score. But for biolab, it's like what you're saying, how much research we have to put in. Like, I think we have to include at least 5 references.
Mhm.
And it was really weird because all these labs we're doing in biolab, they were very like straightforward answers. Like at the end, where oh yeah, this results in this. Like
Yeah.
same
Like
thing
this
with core.
antibiotic does this.
Yeah. So then when you're doing like looking through research papers, it's basically saying the exact same thing you said. So it's a lot of redundancy when you're just typing, like what you're saying, Sam, just in comparison, this and that. I just felt it was really redundant and very time consuming.
The unfortunate part was, remember whenever we would submit it, turn it in, would say like we had like a 40 to 50% similarity, and then all the TAs would be like, yeah, that's fine, because like everyone was writing the same thing, they were using the exact same sources.
Mm.
Like if I remember, I would look at my references, right, and if my references were all highlighted, that would be a good thing because that means that everyone else has been using it, that someone had actually used it before. But if I noticed that there was a gap, like something wasn't highlighted, I would be like, oh shoot, I didn't do the citation correctly. Like that's what I would like remember doing it. But no, they were tedious. Like, yeah, I mean, because funny thing is doing the actual experiment for those lab reports took like an hour, 2 hours at most.
Mhm.
Like they weren't long. And then you would end up doing the lab report. It would be like 10 pages long, and I would be like, ooh, well, that's unfortunate.
Mhm.
Ah,
Yeah. I just
yeah,
hated having to write a whole lab report about like such a simple experiment because
yeah, that's true.
like yeah, it just makes sense and then you have to span that out over like a 7 page,
Oh yeah.
8 page lab report. So
Yeah, the worst part was just reading or like reading those lab reports.
That is
I,
true. But you know what was worse, I think? reading those scientific research papers that they made us
Oh
do
yeah,
instead.
sure, yeah,
Because
that's what.
like reading the actual papers that we used for our experiment was fine because we did like basically the same experiment, which was looking at the certain words and be like, oh, this guy says this, which is basically what I did in my lab. But like, what was it? Like second semester, we had that whole paper on
Aquaporins or something.
yeah, aquaporins and then like doing it. And I remember all of us the first time reading it, we were lost. And then before our lab exam, you guys were like, "Oh, Christian, you gotta teach us how to read this thing." And I was like, "Okay, sure." So I remember calling you guys for like almost 2 hours, like the night before our lab exam for bio, just explaining the entire paper and stuff. Only
Mm,
the paper to say, "Oh, what was the paper about?" And then the multiple choice answer was aquaporins. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, we spent 2 hours reading this whole paper."
sure. And then not only that, just the effort and like the knowledge you need to read each research paper, since all of us are undergraduate students, none of us, or let me rephrase, all of us are freshmen at that point, and then reading these research papers with all these vocab, and it's not just like regular English vocab, like fancy words or whatever. It was just scientific names and a lot of statements are like, yeah, it's just a lot of definitions we don't know. And when trying to read it, this amount of times you have to search stuff up and then try not to forget it. It was just so much work to
I
just
don't
read one paper.
I don't think some of us read it at that point. Some of us just used Control F because it was a PDF and just try to find it within the document
Oh
whenever they
yeah,
asked
Yeah.
about it. Yeah.
first semester.
Ah,
I don't
but
know. English was very tough for me. English is not my strong suit, so it was
Same.
really annoying having to read all those letters,
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
they would have these weird
alphabets.
combinations like, oh, DXY triangle 42, and then they would label like these
Oh, right,
random
right.
genes, and I'd be like, "Ah, what does this gene do? It doesn't even explain it to me." Like, and then I remember we had to answer like 10 questions, and then like I said, we just all controlled F and just looked for it because that paper was long. It was like what, like 10 to 15 pages, and it was dense. It wasn't like diagrams filled with the entire page. No, it was like words that were all over the screen. Like,
Yeah.
oh my
And the
gosh.
diagrams were really tiny. They
And
would take off like the
Mm-hmm.
corner of the page and then
especially since they're not graphs that you're used to seeing, like, oh, here's a line graph,
right.
here's a bar graph. Now, here's this random dots plotted everywhere with lines like skewing off in every direction. Oh, and while you're at it, screw it. Let's throw an omega symbol in there. And I'll be like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Like,
Mm-hmm.
uh, but yeah. And I think that that's what I plan on doing in the future too. Oh
Do be
boy,
that.
it does. It does. Alrighty, I guess let's talk about physics labs, David. At least
Mm-hmm.
for you, and we can talk about a bit about like online labs to kind of
Mm-hmm.
conclude the entire video. But like physics, obviously you're taking physics this summer. With the time we're
Mm-hmm.
recording this is July 21st, so you're going to be in
Mm-hmm.
the second semester of summer physics. So how's physics labs been for you?
So yeah, when I so what happened was because of Corona, having we all at home now, so all of us have to take these physics labs online now. The thing is, a lot of the labs that we do in person when we're at school, it's impossible to do at home. So a lot of the times, the TA, since it's this online format is like relatively brand new, they had to readjust everything to make it fit so that we can do it at home. So I was able to read both the lab manual, what you're supposed to do physically if you're in school, and the second is like what they made, like. And then now looking between those, I feel like doing if I also yeah if I was able to do those labs physically, it was a lot more straightforward and a lot more easier compared to what we have to do online, where it's it's not like how in chemistry where they give you like data and then you just plug it into whatever and solve for the question. They actually like make you buy stuff at home. Like I had to buy like a bunch of weights and then we only used it for one lab.
Are you
But I think
serious?
it was yeah, like Jonathan, who was doing the lab with me, like bought it for like $25 to $45 or something like that. But I realized like there's two things that was difficult with online labs. One was you're making the equipment you have at home and the equipment that you have to buy and trying to make this lab where the materials you have are not only not accurate, but very, they just don't give you the correct data. So what happened was, I know that we were trying to find the force of gravity. I mean, sorry, just gravity
Mhm.
and we had something to slide down a ramp. However, I didn't have a ramp, so I had to use um what are those things people that body surf with? Those
Boogie boards.
yeah, boogie board. I had to
Uh-huh.
use a boogie board and then put it against my bed, post and put a camera with an app trying to record the distances and stuff. Just all that effort for something so simple and something that you can do like in an hour in an actual physics lab in school. It's just online lab is just very time consuming. You don't have the right materials. Your data is inaccurate, and that's because of the equipment you're using. In Ford, they like to, because now you're not doing the lab physically. I know maybe it's just my or just right now what's happening, but they give you a lot of questions for you to answer, like a lot. So yeah,
I
it's
mean,
just extremely time consuming.
I'm not surprised because remember when back in chemistry when we had to do labs online, we were just starting OChem too.
Mhm.
And imagine trying to learn organic chemistry and doing an organic chemistry lab at home.
Oh
I
shit.
remember just the whole naming conventions, looking at NMR and IR spectroscopy graphs, and then it was painful. Like, because I just couldn't see what was going on. Like, we none of us could have visualized it. I remember because Sam and I were in the same lab period, so we would always try to work together on it, and then we would text each
Yeah.
other on the side and be like, "Dude, what's going on?" Like, it
I
was
I think like I wouldn't have survived if I didn't have Christian because that was like really confusing for me.
ironically the naming part was like I understood it, but honestly, if I didn't, if OChem didn't click for me when we were doing it, I think it would have been bad. Like,
Yeah,
Mm, yeah.
English is not my strong suit. Naming English is not the same for me. So I did not enjoy that.
you look at it like, oh, 2 4 this thingy, and like
Yeah,
alcoholic acid or carboxylic whatever is, it was just
exactly.
it was so. Have fun in OChem next semester, guys, because I know you guys are taking that next semester.
Oh,
Big oof. Big
yeah.
oof.
It'd be like that sometimes. But I guess probably one more thing I guess we can talk about for lab. You know, we mentioned this a lot, and I know you guys haven't been engaged in it, but people, being pre-med or, whatever, if you're going to STEM, a lot of people are interested in research labs. Now, obviously, you, David, and Sam haven't gotten experience in it, but I guess even with COVID or like, assume COVID never happened, what was going to be your plan into going into a research lab or finding research experience for like med school applications and stuff?
Mhm. For me, I was planning to do research since my plan was this summer, freshman, or like the summer, how do I say this? The summer between freshman year and sophomore year, I was expecting to take classes to get ahead, to make sure I take all my classes before I take the MCAT. Second summer would just be me grinding, just studying nonstop for the MCAT. And then once I take the MCAT, hopefully by junior year, after I take the MCAT, then the third summer, I was gonna go find research.
Hmm.
So to be honest, I haven't actually looked at how to like find a research lab, how to actually like ask or how do you say it, apply for a research lab. So I actually have no clue.
What
Sam?
about
Well,
yeah?
as for me, like I was actually gonna start research this summer, or that's what I was hoping to do. And then, since COVID hit, when I was looking for my research, like I emailed a professor, and she said that like a lot of difficulties were surrounding research because of the COVID situation, and because we couldn't physically go to the lab, we had to do them online. And so she just suggested that like I wait, and I was just hoping that the med schools would understand that we had COVID interrupting um, our schedule, I suppose, and then they would just realize that a lot of opportunities were lost due to the situation, and I was hoping for the best. And then like I'm just hoping that like I would gain a research position, as soon as this is over. And so, yeah, I'm just hoping for the best. And I guess schedule wise, it doesn't really affect me because I know that schools do prioritize research, but it's not their first priority. And so I'm just trying to focus on my academics for now, my GPA, and just doing well on my MCAT.
Mm.
Yeah.
Makes sense. It is hard. I will say I got very lucky for me because I am in a research lab right now. Just like obviously not like doing anything major big. It's just more like kind of a research assistant, kind of a volunteer basis kind of thing. Obviously, just research experience in general. But because if you think about it, at least the labs that you guys would be interested in going to would probably be like wet or like dry lab experimentations, like bio lab stuff that you would have to do in person. Kind of collecting data input and whatnot. Like if you weren't into like researching global health issues or economic turnarounds in certain countries, then obviously there's not much you could really do about it. So for me, I was like, I think, I've been trying to look for research since first semester. So in first semester, I actually reached out to this one guy who was working in like biotech, like bioinformatics, like basically visualization stuff. And I was talking to him. And then, he didn't accept any undergrads for his specific research team. And I was like, oh, makes sense. But I wanted to talk to this guy and see where I could find other people. And then he would like direct me to a bunch of people he recommended me email and like talk to them. So I was like, all right, I'm just gonna do that. So I just sent a bunch of emails and I sent them around like all throughout second semester, January, February, March. And then a couple replied back, a couple didn't, a couple said like they weren't taking undergrads. And I was like, okay, that's kind of unfortunate. And there was a lot of things I could have applied to, from USD. Like they had like research programs that you could have applied to. But I was like, I didn't have the time for it because of school and everything else I was doing. So I was like, that's why emails were easier for me to send out. And I remember quarantine happened COVID happened in March, and then we were all home. So around April, I got really bored. Like I know this sounds stupid, but I got really bored. So I started doing some research, like research about finding research PIs. And then I emailed this one guy who's currently my research PI, and he was like, "Yeah, let's talk." And he got back to me in like a couple hours. So I was like really surprised that I was a freshman undergraduate, and he actually responded to me. So I had a talk with him, and it was really good. And then he was saying like, "Yeah, if you want to come join and sit in on our lab meetings, hear what we do, I'd be more than happy to let you come." And I was like, originally I was like, "Oh wow, yeah, like yeah, this is perfect." But then the other part of me, I said this to him too. I was like, "Oh, but with COVID, I don't think it's realistic for me to, be in your lab office, and I know we can't go back in person." And then he told me, like, this was a very fortunate part where he said, "Oh, we do a lot of our lab stuff online." Like his lab stuff was synthetic biology, computational biology. It was a lot of coding, but it took biological aspects because it was a stem cell and like tissue regeneration lab. So that's essentially what I've been doing actually for this entire summer ever since school ended. I've just been coding a couple of things, programming a couple of like Python simulations to just see a cell grow like on a computer screen. And it's actually pretty cool. I think research comes in a lot of ways and forms, but if it wasn't for the fact that it was remote, I don't think I would have, had the opportunity to actually have gotten research experience this early on. So yeah. Hmm.
You mentioned that like you talked to the professor or your research PI before he let you in, right? Like
Yeah,
what?
so
Uh-huh.
what happened was, I didn't actually have a traditional like way of getting like a part of this team. I know most PIs would ask you for like a CV or resume, and then they'll have an interview with you, and they'll be like, yeah, we'll take you in to help us do research with us. This guy was a very different, and I think that's the reason why I really liked his lab, because he had this whole philosophy of creating a really creative team environment, inclusive to everyone. And I thought that was really
Hmm.
interesting because I was like, oh, well, that's an environment I wanted to be in, because
Right.
he actually emphasized it on his website, where his philosophy is having not only just obviously the research goals, but having time to communicate, bond with each other. And I can tell because a lot of the meetings, we don't just talk about science stuff, he'll talk about like other things. I remember there was this one time he mentioned like, oh, with COVID there's a lot of dire situations, a lot of people in mental health, and he actually talked about that stuff. And I was like, wow, that's actually really considerate of him to do so. Obviously he has his lab stuff and other things to worry about, but the fact that he cares about his members like mental health, their well-being, their personal situations, I was like, okay, yeah, bingo. But anyways, besides the point, that's what I'm saying. He had a bit of more of an interesting creative alternative. So what he did was he didn't require a CV or resume, which realistically, it's not like I had a really composite CV or resume anyways, because I didn't have any research experience beforehand. So like I said, it's hard because it's kind of like getting a job. In order to get a job, you have to have former job experience, like one of those
Right. Right.
dilemmas. And so I was like, shoot. But his requirements were send an email, tell him how long you expect to work in his lab, and tell him what are some lab experiences that you've gotten. So I sent an email. I told him, oh, I can work as much as you want in the summer, and then during the school year, here's what my current schedule will be like given the COVID situation. And then I just said like, yeah, I would love to talk to you, maybe get a chance to orient your lab. And then he said, yeah, come, let's have a talk. And he didn't treat it like an interview. He treated it like a conversation. And it was true. When I went to talk to him, it was really just a conversation. He asked me, oh, what am I studying? What are my interests? How was I doing in school? How's everything? How's family? Then we would talk about his research lab, what he does, a lot of really creative things. And I talked about his like team philosophy, and I was like, yeah, I really love your idea. You know, fun fact, the PI I work for right now, he used to be a professional volleyball player in Italy. So that was another thing
Oh,
that I got to mention. I was like, oh, I heard you were like a professional volleyball player in Italy before, and yeah, stuff like that. But he talked to me about that, and then at the very end, I was like, yeah, so I was just wondering. I know I'm just a freshman, but is there any chance I can get some experience working in your lab? And you know, I knew because of COVID, it's not like I could have done hands-on stuff. I was like, even if I could just shadow or like follow along with what you guys are doing. And he was like, yeah, come to our next lab meeting in 2 weeks, and you can see what's going on. I came to his lab meeting in 2 weeks. It was not just me and him, but there was a lot of other people. And I thought it would just be a guest, but he actually started introducing me to everyone, saying like, "Oh, introduce yourself," and then I'll have the rest of the team introduce them. Got to befriend, talk with a lot of them, and then after like I think maybe 2 more additional weeks of just me and him, like me observing a couple lab meetings, visiting a couple groups, he put me into he has multiple teams in his research group. Like one team does this, one team does that. So he put me into his computational group, which is the one doing the simulations, running kind of like these evolutionary algorithms and stuff like that. So now I'm actually getting to do hands-on experiment. I talk with them a lot more frequently and getting screenshots of a couple things. And yeah, that's kind of how it went for me.
hey, that's dope.
Yeah, but I would say, my path was very different because I don't think every PI is like that. I think some have like an actual formal interview process and a way to onboard their members. For me, he was just like, yeah, you can come. And I was like, thank you. But ironically, I think that conversation I had with him when he said it was just a talk, I want to say that was low key a test too. I think he wanted to like just make it really a really relaxed, like a super super relaxed interview, but still get information from me, um, even though like it didn't seem like it. I think that was his way of finding out my personality skills and actually getting to know more about me. And I'm pretty good with talking with people and explaining a couple things, so I think that came to my advantage there because I was completely unaware of what I think he was trying to do until maybe a week after I was like, you know what, I think he was testing me in that call, stuff like that. So yeah.
Hmm. And then when he put you in the, you said computational group, I know, and like you showed me, you had to do like a lot of coding and stuff.
Mhm.
How much coding did you know beforehand?
I surprisingly, almost none. See, I took APCS in high school, so I knew Java coding because that
Mm,
was what APCS was. But APCS was only equivalent to one semester of computer science in college. So, I took it in junior year. I forgot all of APCS. I thought I would like coding. I hated it. Um, his lab uses a lot of Python and C++. C++ wasn't that frequent though, so I didn't have to worry about it. But thing is, C++ is a lot harder. Python is actually pretty easy. I didn't have any Python experience. So when he told me I would be put into the computational group and I would start working on it, I was like, I don't know any Python coding. So I actually took 2 online Python courses. I finished them in a week. One was on data visualization and one was about Python for data science. And I learned Python in basically a week just to be a part of that group and to actually know what's going on. Um, and it's not like I had to know how to code stuff. I had to know how to read a code and understand what it does. So it was kind of beneficial. Like as long as I knew the syntax and how certain loops and functions worked, that was essentially all I needed to get by. So it worked out pretty well, and I was able to actually edit a couple programs to allow one of our simulations to run properly. So I would say it was pretty much a success for me on that end.
mm,
Yeah, it's like that sometimes, but I would say yeah, there's a lot of skills you would probably need for a research lab. That's why they ask for like. That's why it's hard to get it as a freshman or sophomore. I would say I was very fortunate and very lucky.
I see.
Yeah.
Definitely. I probably, yeah, since comp sci now is just getting bigger and bigger, especially when it comes to like not just anything outside of medicine, but also within medicine as well. And I guess, yeah, not just within medicine, it's just biochem. It's really just everywhere. I feel like it's probably a good idea to like take a comp sci class, probably at a community college to learn some of these stuff, huh?
Yeah, and I would say, there's a lot of online courses too. Ever since COVID hit, a lot of schools like Harvard, MIT, for example, do these online courses. I did mine through IBM. You can just take those. Those would actually probably be cheaper than actually taking a formal class. You get a certificate out of it, and it's self-paced. And for me, because I don't know, I think for me I was just able to pick up the coding material a lot faster. I was able to do, like I said, each Python course I did. So I did 2 of them in 1 week each, so 2 weeks total. Um, I mean, obviously it depends on the pacing per person, how much time you actually invest on it. But because I spent a lot of time and it kind of just clicked for me, I was able to get through it pretty quickly. I think, yeah, coding has become such an integral part of our lives now.
Mm.
Yeah. Sam, any other words?
Yeah, no, I'm just listening to your story. Because, like, I don't know. Because I have to do that too, where
Yeah.
write up my CV and apply for research. But then, like, I'm just scared because, like, I've never done that before. And so
Mhm.
I think the interview is going to be new. And, I've written up a resume, but I never got to use it. So I think writing, I mean, a CV is kind of different, but it's like basically the same thing. And like, I think like applying to these new positions is going to be a new experience for me. And I'm just
Mhm.
scared, but at the same time, I feel like, you know, um, going after what I want, I think it's just great. And whether or not like I get a position or not, I think it's going to be a great experience overall. So
Mhm.
Yeah. And I think, like many people say, you would send like hundreds of cold emails and not get any response back. And then you maybe get a response from like 2 or 3 of them. And there's not even a chance that you get a part of their lab. So it's pretty difficult sometimes, but I would say it's not impossible, just depends on what you're interested in, how much you can demonstrate that interest. But yeah, until you get to that point, it's pretty tough to get there. Yeah. Anyways, I think that was a good talk. It's a good idea, kind of what to think about, especially in COVID and quarantine. It's kind of hard to do these kind of things now, especially lab
Mhm.
classes. Like I said, good luck on OChem next year, guys.
Yeah, Chi.
Because I'm not taking OChem for a while, so good luck on OChem next semester.
I
But
have it tough because I'm taking like biochem slash mobile and OChem and statistics for bio majors.
Wait, are you taking the combined class, right? The molecular
Yeah,
biochem?
yeah.
How come you
There's
didn't do
a
it like
uh-huh.
uh, how come you didn't take it during the spring? Like,
Oh, it's because like the physics, like if I was gonna be on track for taking the MCAT
uh,
or taking all the prereqs for the MCAT, I guess the recommended classes for the MCAT
mm,
before junior year spring, then I would have to take physics this semester, right? But then um, there was not the schedule conflict in this
uh,
semester required me to take or like didn't it um like I couldn't take physics this semester, so like I had to take it off track, and so um I was gonna either have 2 GEs or take biochem slash mobile this semester, and then keep on track to taking the MCAT. And so I just did that, and then I would take physics off track, which means that I get a better professor, and so that's
yeah,
even
true.
like more of an advantage than you know doing doing it the other way.
No, yeah, I
It's kind of
agree.
complicated. Like it's hard to explain because there were so many like factors that went into my scheduling, and like um I guess this was the best that I could make of with the classes that I was given.
No, yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, and since like for human bio majors, I think our plan was to take physics both semesters through like all of junior year. And the problem with that is that the MCAT, most people take it like not only during junior year, but also the summer before junior year. Like they'll take their first one. And if you don't know physics, which is like 15% of the MCAT, I believe, you're missing like a big portion. And then studying by yourself is just extremely difficult because physics is just not an easy concept. So yeah, I think
um,
it's definitely a good idea. So will you be taking like physics? It'll be
Yeah, next
like,
semester.
oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so I'm
That's
taking it
smart.
during the spring. And like I knew I was gonna have a lot of difficulty taking physics because, you know, I tried looking at it and it was very difficult. And I remember taking like after I looked at that, I remembered that I had a lot of difficulty taking AP physics during my
Mhm.
high school. And like um yeah, just looking back, I realized I'm not very good at like um, I don't know, just physics stuff, I guess. Like all those like drawings and like I have to like think about it in my head. Yeah, it
Mhm.
was pretty difficult.
Yeah,
No,
same. Like
if it
I
was
feel
just calculations, it would have been
true.
better, but it's not, you know.
I feel like once you take it again, yeah, once you take it again next year, it was gonna be much easier to understand. Because like I was like the same thing when I was in AP Physics. I
Uh,
think it's also because I didn't put in the work to understand everything and to like remember like for each test. So then I know I did extremely poor like throughout AP Physics, and then the AP exam came up and that didn't go well. But yeah, in
right,
college,
right.
like I feel like if all three of us, like when we're taking physics, as long as we just focus and just keep reading the material, we should turn out fine.
Well, I never
Like,
took AP physics, so I
oh
was
yeah,
always like, so
oof,
I took
good
physics over the
luck.
summer, and I had a in high school, so I did in one summer period. And I remember that was the same year the World Cup was playing on, so I ended up watching the World Cup games instead of actually like paying attention. I somehow knew physics still, so I was like okay with it.
Mm,
But I didn't really, because I think I just got lucky. It was a really, at least in at my high school, it was easy because it wasn't like a super hard class. And even though physics I know is a hard subject, they made it super easy. And like a lot of the practice quizzes and tests we would get at home would end up being the same thing as a test, just different numbers. So as long as I knew how to do the practice stuff, like I basically knew the test. So I didn't, yeah, I'm kind of scared for college physics because I didn't really do much in high school physics.
mm,
Um,
Yeah, physics is tough, man.
yeah,
I
it'll
don't know
be a
what to tell
struggle.
you.
It'll be a struggle. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. I think what helped me was that I realized because I took AP Physics before, physics right now is so much more easier. But another way was we had like a concept that I remember learning, but clearly did not study at all. So what happened was I was able to watch the lecture, became very confused, go on the second lecture, became even more confused. And what I did was I read through the chapters in the book, and I feel like when we're learning something new, we're at that phase where like we kind of we're very, I don't know how to say it, like biased against the new information we're learning. So it hasn't clicked in yet. And once you hear the professor say the exact same thing, it kind of like clicks in your own mind, like, oh yeah, this is what it is. This is how it's gonna be like.
I
So
mean,
yeah,
your professor like basically read off the textbook.
no, I know.
Yeah.
He used the exact same examples
Um,
from the textbook too.
yeah, that was very tough, you know?
Yeah. He's a great professor though.
Yeah, I just
Oh
gave up.
yeah.
I was just like,
Hopefully
nope.
he doesn't watch this. But but yeah,
you're watching
definitely.
this, for legal reasons, these were all jokes.
Exactly, exactly. But yeah, if you read the textbook, then go to the lecture where he says the exact same thing. At first, after reading, you not understand, you will remember what happened and what's supposed to happen. And once you hear it again, you're like, oh, so this is what's supposed to be. And it becomes common sense. So it's really just, you have to go through the material twice to actually understand it. Or that's how I saw it.
Uh, yeah, reminds me. We start school in a month, so
Yeah, unfortunate.
good news. But on that note, I think that's a good place to stop for today's. But yeah, it's a fun podcast. Good talk to you guys about this stuff. Like I said, good luck on online labs. I know I'm not taking any online labs next semester. But
Agree.
yeah, I guess that's we'll wrap up for today on that note. So yeah, thanks you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Mhm.